Every other.
We're going to call this meeting to order February 18th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Every
Counselor Beachhead.
Yeah.
Counselor Bergman.
Call
Counselor Martin.
this meeting to order February
Fraser.
18th, 2025.
Counselor.
every
Counselor Beachhead. Counselor Bergman.
Sorry, I was playing it back the other day. It's playing. Sorry. What?
No,
Oh, did you not call the-
finish roll call.
And Mayor Palmer.
Yes. All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any agenda adjustments, Lou?
Not this time.
Announcements, correspondence, awards, and proclamations? None? Okay. Public input. Now, the public has 5 minutes. And we normally come to the podium here and you state your name, address.
Hi, my name is Gerard Marzocchi. Oh, hi, I'm Gerard Marzocchi. I'm the owner of Mellowstone LLC. It's a property. It's not a non-addressed property. It's on like 7th Avenue. And I just honestly come in here to address the courts, no, but address the council and introduce myself. I've owned the property for some years now and have been in a bit of a pickle trying to build a home here. I love Southern Oregon and I love Gold Hill and the cute town and trying to help preserve it the best way that I can if I can become a part of the community. So my goal is to simply just introduce myself and hopefully we could get to know each other better and I could be a part of your guys' community and build a home here. That's really my main agenda, is to just introduce myself and meet you guys face to face, eye to eye, and hopefully I could be a part of it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Very much. Can I speak some more?
Yeah, you have 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
All right, well, currently as it states, you have a property that's available that's adjacent to mine. And I understand you guys have an appraisal on it. I just wish we can come to, I initially started off as an easement just to get access so I could build a driveway to actually like have water and power get over there and build a home, because I can't get that unless I have a certain degree easement to get approved with the city to get a home, to get an address. So that's like step 1. Step 2 would be the easement failed. So I figured, okay, you guys want to sell the property. I'm not opposed to purchasing the property, but there's only a certain amount of money that I have. I can't afford to buy the property at the price you guys are having. I made an offer. Yes, I know it was a low offer. I was hoping maybe we can counter offer somewhere, but sometimes appraised value versus what the property actually will sell for are 2 different things. As we know, we do have a bit of a foundation and infrastructure issue here in the city of Gold Hill. I know that I'm not in the city going to all the different meetings yet, but I do know that there are some infrastructure issues that we need to deal with as a city in the future as the time comes. But we also want to build the city of Gold Hill and build more properties so we can get more, property taxes and just more people in the town to influx. There's more families, more people spending money. The town stays flourishing. I know that one of the issues we have is that it's a forgotten city a little bit, Gold Hill. There's a lot of history here. So I think that preserving some of the history and the neighborhoods and building them out is essentially a good thing. And I'm just here to actually live here and not be a developer. I want to actually have this be a home I can raise some family, children here. So I hope that maybe I can come to another board meeting and we can go a little further with getting this behind us or closed out so I could actually be a part of the community. Is it just me talking or is there any questions from you guys?
It's not a back and forth.
It's not a back-
on the-
It's just
Okay.
public.
Okay, cool. And I think some of the changes that City of Gold Hill has been doing on the main strip is great. some of the cute little food halls that's happening. It's driving a lot more traffic, I've noticed. And a lot of the stores that have been closed down are reopening them, which is great. Good. Yeah. Happy to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have no one else signed up for public comment.
Okay. So now we have consent agenda.
And there's no items.
Okay, there's no items. Now we have council considerations. On A, we have ordinance 25-03, title 2 amendments. Lily? We'll let you explain that one.
Council, before you is ordinance 25-03, and this is a cleanup of the Gold Hill Municipal Code Title II. And there's a lot of sections here, as you see, just a year ago, you created the section chapter 2.01 city manager. But as soon as the new Gold Hill charter passed, that became unnecessary because it's covered by the charter. The section chapter 2.02 is the police department. We don't currently have a police department, and so what I am recommending is that we rename this section law enforcement. And we document in our municipal code how law enforcement is going to be handled until which time there's a change. So before we kind of highlight through each of these sections, which I'm happy to do with you, in your attached packet, you'll see things that are crossed out in the initial version, and you'll see things in red. Red is what is added, and the cross out is the removal. And then after that, in your packet, starting, hold on just a second. Then we go back to the beginning and, after the portion that has the crossed out portion, then we go to the portion that is just what's the new stuff. And so, both should be there. And then, so right now, where we're at is wanting to clean up these areas. So if you'd like, I'll just go through the section. So the first portion is discussing removing the portion about the city manager. Like I said, that's redundant with what is required with the charter. After that is the law enforcement, and the recommended language is replacing everything and having it instead have just this paragraph. Until such time as the police department can be reestablished, law enforcement is provided by the Jackson County Sheriff's Office as part of their normal service area. City manager may contract with the sheriff's office or another municipal law enforcement agency to provide contracted dedicated law enforcement services. Code enforcement can also be provided by volunteers who have been trained in the local ordinances and procedures. So code enforcement can be done in correlation with another agency. It can be done with volunteers, or it can be done in-house. But it's kind of wrapping that up, all those sections, removing the law enforcement portion. After that, in the ordinance, you'll see that the next portion is, and what this is we removed the police department and created the law enforcement under the same title. So the next portion was 2.04, Superintendent of Public Works and Parks. It's eliminating that chapter entirely. And then chapter 2.08, last week, or last meeting rather, the council adopted the previous ordinance that replaced the previous with the contract review board. So this is just a cleanup, physically taking it out. You guys have actually already repealed this. One thing I will clarify, you do, no matter what, act as the contract review board. If something were to come before us that the state says the contract review board has to do, it is always the council. So you may still have to wear both hats. I misspoke when I said you only wear one hat. You are the contract review board. But the portion in this has already been removed by the previous ordinance that came out. Planning Commission, just a couple of Scrivener things. Changing the sentence structure, that appointments will be 3 years, current appointments, and I just kind of split it up. Instead of previously, it was 1 year after the other that the 5 were appointed. Right now, we have 3 current members. It's giving them 3 more years, and then when we appoint the other 2, kind of to 29. So it offsets 2 of the members from the original 3. And that, but the main thing was editing was, city manager shall designate versus city recorder, a secretary for the planning commission, and applications, after filed with the city versus city recorder. And it's interesting, they referenced the chair in the code, but then they called it a president down below, so it was inconsistent. So this was just cleaning up the consistency. And then the next portion was citizen involvement. This is also one that we have addressed in another portion of our rules. And so just replacing kind of like with a law enforcement with a single sentence versus duplicative information. Currently, according to our comprehensive plan that was adopted in 1984 and providing for the state goal 1 citizen involvement, the planning commission is designated as the citizen involvement committee. And should they not be able to fill that role, the council fills the role as the citizen involvement committee. So instead of having several pages documenting all the things they're going to do, according to DLCD with the state, which is Department of Land Conservation and Development, the comprehensive plan covers it. And this is just making sure our code matches our comprehensive plan. So then the next portion was employee vacations. It's not appropriate to have the employee vacations in a municipal code. It's dealt with through employee policy. You've already adopted the employee handbook and it would be covered there. Personnel rules is the same thing. The council has adopted the policies and the employee handbook. And so this is removing this from the municipal code. Processing fees and procedures. When the code was established, last updated several years ago, looks like 2001, the only form of payment that was documented if there's a payment reversed was a check. So this is just modernizing the documentation to say that if any payment for any reason is reversed or dishonored after somebody makes the payment to us, that we can then have a processing fee for the dishonored payment. So instead of keeping it to a check, it's any payment. And we do have people that make online payments that then the credit cards reject the payment. And so this would just encounter that instead of it being strictly to a check, that any payment that's dishonored or returned for any reason, after it's returned, the charge would go into effect. Then the municipal judge portion is removed. This is addressed in the charter. And then emergency management. So in this case, there's several references to the chief of police. And in this case, the recommendation is that instead of the chief of police, it'd be the city manager. But in the hierarchy of in an emergency, it's still the mayor, then the council president acting in the mayor, and then it would be to the city manager, and then the city manager successor. In this case, I added the word clerk, because currently I'm acting as both the city manager and the recorder. So to replace myself as city manager and then my backup's me as well didn't make sense. So I just put a /clerk so that it's consistent with kind of where we are right now, but nothing else in this portion changed. If you want a clean version, it does then start on page 24 is just the new language in red without any of the crossed out there. So you have both versions. This was published more than 7 days or at least 7 days in advance in accordance to our charter. And so it would allow the council to adopt by having a first reading by title only, a second reading by title only, unless there's objections, and then adopting unless there's anything further. So at this point, that's my preview of this ordinance. I'll turn it back to you, ma'am.
So at this time, I'm taking you'd like to have a motion from the council?
So if there's questions of the council, we can do that. But as far as what can happen if there's no objections to moving forward, the council can request that it be a motion to read ordinance 25-03 for first reading by title only. And then based on that, and then, I mean, if there's questions along the way, if there's anything changed that you guys want, any edits, we can address that. Second reading by title only is also an, available motion. After that process, after an ordinance has been read for the second time, then the council can move towards adoption. So it's up to the council if they want it done all tonight or if they want it in multiple days, but it starts with the first reading. And then after the first reading, we'll address if there's a second reading.
Council,
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to have the first reading by title only of ordinance 25-3. I'll second that motion.
okay, I have a motion, and I have a second. Questions? Roll call.
Counselor Berggren,
Yes.
Counselor Beachhead,
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Frazier,
Yes.
Counselor Stancliff. Yes. Motion carries.
Can do the first read.
Yes, sir. Ordinance 2503, an ordinance of the city of Gold Hill, Jackson County, Oregon, amending Gold Hill Municipal Code Title II, Administration and Personnel, creating Section 2.02 Law Enforcement, amending Section 2.12 Planning Commission, 2.16 Committee for Citizen Involvement, and 2.30 Emergency Management, removing Section 2.01 City Manager, Section 2.02 Police Department, Section 2.04 Superintendent of Public Works and Parks, Section 2.08 Contract Review Board, Section 2.20 Vacations, Section 2.24 Personnel Rules, Section 2.28 Municipal Judge, and repealing ordinances 24-01 from 2024, 90-12 from 1991, 91-04 from 1991, 487 from 1982, 397 from 1974, 463 from 1980, 535 from 2000, 514 from 1983, 424 from 1978, 364 from 1970, 444 from 1980, 319 from 1961, 485, 1981, 88-003 from 1988, and 89-03 from 1989.
Do I have any questions?
No.
Now, we want to do
That's up to the council.
council,
I'd like to make a motion.
okay?
I'd like to make a motion to have the second reading of ordinance 25-3 by title only.
Second that.
Any questions, council? All right, I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Counselor Beachhead,
Yes.
Counselor Berggren,
Yes.
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Frazier,
Yes.
Counselor Stancliff. Yes. Motion carried.
Ordinance 25-03, an ordinance of the city of Gold Hill, Jackson County, Oregon, amending Gold Hill Municipal Code Title II, Administration and Personnel, creating Section 2.02 Law Enforcement, amending 2.12 Planning Commission, 2.16 Committee for Citizen Involvement, and 2.30 Emergency Management, removing sections 2.01 City Manager, 2.02 Police Department, 2.04 Superintendent of Public Works and Parks, 2.08 Contract Review Board, 2.20 Vacations, 2.24 Personnel Rules, 2.28 Municipal Judge, and repealing ordinances 24-01 from 2024, 90-12 from 1991, 91-04 from 1991, 487 from 1982, 397 from 1974, 463 from 1980, 535 from 2000, 514 from 1983, 424 from 1978, 364 from 1970, 444 from 1983, 19 from 1961, 485 from 1981, 88-003 from 1988, and 89-03 from 1989.
Oh, you haven't seen the guy in Salem.
I'm having flashbacks of the state capitol, so.
That guy's fast.
Yeah.
So anyway, now I have a first reading and a second reading. Councilors, is there any other questions? Well, at this time, I will entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance 25-03.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 25-3 by title only.
No.
No, no, no,
To
no.
adopt.
Yeah.
And this, let me rephrase. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 25-3.
Any questions? All right, I have a motion and I also have a second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Beachide. Yes. Counselor Berggren.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Frazier.
Yes.
Counselor Stancliff. Yes. Motion carries.
Congratulations. That painful. And what I mean by that is this has been a long time coming.
We were gonna bring this to you in May. And so it's, the charter passing changed some of the edits. There's gonna be some more edits coming to you in this chapter, but, legal is reviewing it. So this is the stuff that was straightforward to bring to you from them. So.
Okay, on council considerations, section B, resolution 25-R-11. Facilities used agreements. Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will let you know that this resolution and the next one both were recommended by our insurance. And there'll be some more coming at the next meeting that also were part of that. So our insurance services does an assessment of risk to the city. And we get graded on that risk. And based on that assessment, our bills, our costs for property casualty insurance goes up or down. And there's recommendations they make. Matter of fact, we're scheduling the assessment, we're in the process of getting that assessment scheduled, but in the meantime, in reviewing with our local broker, Hearts Insurance, what will be assessed on, they made recommendations of things that we can put into place and that will help our assessment. And this is, these are two policies that were recommended by our insurance. First one is resolution 25-R-11. And this would be a resolution of the city of Gold Hill for use of facilities and premises agreement. And this was a recommendation of, well, quite frankly, a contract that we would go into with anybody that wanted to use city facilities or lease any premises or any agreement such like that. And I literally took the contract and put it into the form of a resolution. And but one piece I want to point out, just in case there's any questions of this, that section 5 says that further agreement details and forms shall be created and updated by the city manager as necessary to ensure compliance with the terms and conditions outlined in this resolution with state laws and insurance requirements. So the idea is that if there's edits and tweaks that in specific forms that I can work with our insurance and make sure we're in compliance with state law and their requirements, and we can update those as needed without having to come back to the council for each of those form changes or in that process. So I wanted to make sure that I'm pointing that out to you, that that is authorizing me to further that. But essentially, the point is that there would be releases and waivers, indemnification and the city being held harmless, assumption of risk that people using the facility assume full responsibility for that risk that they take. And then additional terms would be that they agree to. I will tell you that under section 4, that insurance limits of 1 million, our insurance actually recommended we move that to 3 million. Currently, we partner with some community organizations that pay for a certificate of insurance for use of our facilities of $1 million right now. And I believe it would be a hardship for them to go to 3 million. And so I want you to know that this is an area that I opted to bring to you different than what the recommendation of the insurance was. And it is the council's decision if you would like to override that to the 3 million. The idea of our insurance is state tort law can go to 3 million. And as long as we had indemnification of the group up to $3 million, it would cover us for the full amount that tort law would cover. And so I certainly need to make sure that council is making that decision. If you want any group that were to use our facilities to have the full coverage up to the 3 million, that is your prerogative. 1 million is kind of the minimum that is recommended by the insurance. And so I opted to choose the 1 million amount, but council, really, it's a policy decision that you guys would make, and we can amend this as you would see fit.
Can I make a suggestion? Lily, can we make that say where it's insurance with limits of 1 million up to 3 million? And would that suffice? As far as the resolution? You know where it says liability insurance?
You know what? I would recommend let's table this until the March 11th meeting, because I would like to ask the insurance of, what comes to mind first initially that I would like to see is if we could have a tiered approach, a minimum of 1 million, maximum of 3 million maybe.
Mhm.
But when do you determine when is it which? And so if they maybe would have some recommended language of when it should be 1 million, when it should be 3 million, their recommendation was just to have it 3 million. So, I think that there is some level of, let me see if there's a tiered approach we can see that would outline what we would do for what. And maybe, if we're not comfortable with a number tonight, that we can put this off for the March 11th meeting, and I can have some responses from the insurance to get back to you on. But there's some more questions down the line. I saw Counselor Martin and Counselor Berthing.
Go ahead, Rick.
Has Gold Hill had an incident yet that's paid out $1 million?
I couldn't answer that, and it doesn't matter. Insurance is one of those things that you have in hand in case something happens at some point, and you never know when that moment will be. And you don't know when somebody will sue the city, even for something we have nothing to do with, somebody doing something that's not our, that we had no say in.
So people that, the people in Gold Hill that are paying the insurance, what's the rate increase from 1 million to 3?
I don't know, each group has to find out from their own insurance carrier based on the event that they're having, how much that would be. So I've been able to I had to buy event insurance for a wedding that was in a state park, and it was based on how many people were going to be there and all this other kind of stuff. So basically, but in this circumstance, we have an organization that does several events with us, and they went to their insurance as an organization and they got a policy of $1 million for the whole year. And it just kind of covers anything they do. The issue is not necessarily, I mean, we don't determine the rates. That's up to the insurance company based on who's getting the insurance. Is it covered for a day? Is it covered for a year? And they pay that premium based on what insurance they're asking for. Just the same as with me and the extra $1 million coverage that the city required of me when I was hired, I had to pay that $400 or whatever it was upfront, to cover that. So that might not be, or that might be high on how much it cost me. I think it was less, that might have been both years was about $450. But anyhow, it's up to that organization and their insurance company to cost. Where we as a city are looking at is, what are they covering us? Because we're asking them to co-insure us, to name us as a co-insured. So that if something were to happen, that their insurance policy would also cover us if something were to happen. And the reason our insurance says to make it $3 million is because the state of Oregon caps what a civil lawsuit against the city can be at $3 million. That's a tort claim limit. So they want to make sure that we're covered for the full amount we could be sued, so it doesn't come out of taxpayer dollars. Because I want to be clear, one thing it's important for you as a council to know, our insurance is not a standard commercial insurance that's out there in the world for anybody else to use. We are insured through City County Insurance Service. It's fully paid by taxpayer dollars. Now, they go and some of it is that our pool of money pays for that, and some of it they go and they buy insurance with that money through companies as well. But it is entirely paid by taxpayer dollars. And if there's a claim that has to be paid out that the insurance doesn't cover, how do we pay that, and what taxpayer dollars pay that? So our entire budget is under $3 million. If we were to have to pay a claim that isn't covered by insurance up to that $3 million, what would we do? So from the standpoint of somebody who does insurance, they want to make sure we're covered, and they're going to be very much saying, make sure it's covered. And that's why their recommendation is that we require that anybody who uses our facilities have coverage for $3 million. So the city is covered 100% no matter what. The problem is that people use the park that don't reserve it. This would be for other things, bigger things, like if there's actually a user agreement, a premises agreement, adopting the policies that if somebody's using the park, we have, versus just general people recreating out there. In that circumstance, in general recreation, we have the recreation immunity through state law that's also been challenged through some courts and such. But this is for a use of facilities and premises agreement, if we have agreement with somebody.
This would be for like that dog event we have.
Mhm.
Any of those events that we would enter in a contract with for somebody to use our facilities.
Correct.
Would that also
The skate
include,
fundraiser or
the league over there? Or are they separate?
the what?
They have their own, Little League. They have their own.
Little League has their own. However, this would apply as well as if on a renewal of a lease or something that they would have to come to terms with the new agreement. Because it is a use of facilities and premises agreement. Their lease expires in May. This would be in place before their lease expires.
Any other questions? Well, does the council have any objections to tabling this till March?
Unless you feel comfortable enough to pass it tonight,
I
but
think it'd be a good idea to sit there and get more information out before we decide, but
Okay.
I don't think we should. I think we should just do the 3 million. Wait a minute, I don't. We partner with Can Do for a lot of events, like our biggest, Gold Dust Day. Can I ask what their limit is, their insurances?
well, right now we require $1 million.
No, I'm asking what Can Do has for insurance.
That's what it is, $1 million. I
And-
can't have you go back and forth from the audience.
No.
Either be on microphone, but they provide $1 million certificate.
So if we
So
do
then
this $3 million, this would cause the fees for the people that want to use our facilities.
No,
Correct?
has nothing to do with the fees of
Well, I
renting.
mean, they have.
No,
to
no,
pay the
not
insurance,
their
right?
insurance.
They have to,
fees.
they
So
have to
that-
have insurance on file,
That
yes,
price would go up for them essentially.
yes.
And that may limit like the Little League from being able to renew their lease if it went up too high.
Or
Any
Or
group
Can
that
Do
would have
have
user
Gold
agreement.
Dust Days,
Mhm.
right? I don't think we should pass it tonight because I don't know that we know that.
I think we need more information.
Don't know
It's
what?
gotta be 3 million and Can Do only has 1 million, then we can't do Gold Dust Days.
Or they go back and get more insurance. But in this case, I would say that technically the council approved it at the last minute before, or the last meeting before this went into play. And so they were approved at the level they had at the time. And so
Be grandfathered in.
potentially,
For a year, maybe.
correct, but then moving forward, user agreements would be at the higher level. So here's the hard thing. You guys are wearing the hat of city councilor tonight. You all wear multiple hats in the community and you have to answer to the other organizations you're a part of and all that. But in here, you're looking out for the 1,345 citizens that live in the city of Gold Hill that you are responding in this role of if we are sued, what is the protection in place if something were to happen? And how does that go back onto the community? What does that mean? So in the realm of protecting the city, you have to make the decision for the city and it may impact others. If you want me to see if they have a recommendation of a tiered approach or something, I'm happy to do that if they have any other recommendations. What I'm telling you is upfront, their recommendation was to require the 3 million. I chose to put it in here as 1 million. But I also am obligated to make sure that you're aware of what they said.
Any other questions from the council?
I'd
What would you like to do?
I'd like to make a motion to table it until we find a little bit more out, a little bit more information out from Lily about maybe the tiered approach.
So don't,
Second.
so hold on. I'm just gonna clarify. If you make a motion versus the discussion about the motion, so then they can vote on it. So if you can
Okay.
clarify what your motion is
I'll make a motion to table.
until
until you get more information, bring back.
Okay.
Second.
Well, I have a motion and I have a second. Any other questions? Roll call. And that's on resolution 25-R-11. Just throwing that out there, guys.
Counselor Bergren was my motion maker. Who was my second? Thank
Leah.
you. Roll call. Counselor Beachide,
Yes.
Counselor Bergren.
Yes,
Counselor Frazier,
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yeah.
Counselor Stancliff.
No.
Motion carries 4-1.
Next is resolution 25-R-12, fleet safety policy. Now, Lily, is this also going to be about insurance?
It is.
Okay,
Not necessarily insurance, but more a policy. Again, this is resolution 25-R-12. This is a resolution related to fleet safety policy. And where we have a fleet of vehicles and equipment, and it's important to operate those safely. And that, both the safety of our employees, residents, and visitors is a top priority. And so we want to have a policy in place to deal with how we're dealing with, fleet. So this establishes a policy, that we have driver qualifications for employees of city-owned vehicles, that they must have a valid driver's license to operate those vehicles and complete any required training. That we shall, make sure that our vehicles are regularly inspected and maintained to a safety standard. That we'll have to report accidents, investigations promptly and through the proper course. That we're going to promote safe driving practices and adhering to traffic laws, seatbelt usage, and prohibiting distracted driving. And that, the responsibility is on the city manager to ensure the compliance with the policy. And that it will be reviewed and evaluated annually to see if it's being effective, if there's any updates needed. And that it'll be for the city manager to adopt a driver safety program updated according to compliance with resolution, best practice, insurance requirements, and state laws.
questions?
I read in there, it says effective training for all employees who operate city vehicles. Have something in place for that, something we're gonna develop. That's something that's,
Gives us the option to develop something more specific.
that's what I thought. And then the other
I
question
won't put them through the emergency vehicle operations training that I went through.
might be fun. And that's gonna apply to cell phone use too, right? While driving.
Cell phone
Basically,
use
I'm
counts
seeing
as,
something like that in a different area. That's why I want to bring it up.
so the distracted driving, cell phone falls under that. I will let you know that our employee handbook also addresses cell phone use while operating vehicles, so it's already in policy in place.
Just want to make sure.
So,
Vehicles all have GPS, no, wrong one.
Free.
Hands-free is included in the vehicles currently. So it's,
Another company doesn't have that, we just got a ticket.
Got it.
Back on them, so that's why I was bringing it.
so we do provide work phones for the employees that are in the field. And so those can be connected via Bluetooth to the vehicles they drive. The exception is, our utility vehicles don't have that. So our trucks do, but not, say, the John Deere, the skid steer and that. And quite frankly, they shouldn't be moving those vehicles if they're on a phone, period. And so we'll be putting that kind of stuff in play and making sure that, we're working towards getting the appropriate training for the different types of vehicles and such that we have.
Perfect, thank you.
so what do you do with employees that have below average driving rules? That have to carry maybe an SR-22?
So I'm not currently dealing with that. I will say that all our employees have passed, have backgrounds that pass. I think I'm the only one now that has a CDL. But as far as that goes, I would probably we would just need to make sure that they're in compliance with the SR 22 and the restrictions of having a license that has those, like I'm blanking on the word, but a provisional driver's license.
Mhm.
I worked in a previous job as a parole and probation officer where one of the other parole and probation officers actually was arrested for DUI. And while their court case was pending, they kept their job and another employee had to drive them to comply with, they no longer had a valid license. Once the conviction was in place, they were no longer able to keep their job because they weren't able to perform the duties under that. And so, you know, under the case of court, if somebody was pending something, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. And so we're gonna follow best practice. Probably if something else comes up, we'll see some policies other cities have if they have recommendations. And again, compliance with state law, what our insurance is recommending.
Any other questions? So I would like to entertain a motion for this resolution.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 25R-12, a resolution creating a fleet safety policy.
Yeah, I have a motion. Can I have a second? Any other questions? Roll call.
Counselor Beachide,
Yes.
Counselor Berggren,
Yes.
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Frazier,
Yes.
Counselor Stancliff,
Yes.
motion carries.
Right. Moving ahead on section D, resolution 25-R-14, appointed budget officer. Lily.
ORS 294331 requires the city to establish or appoint a budget officer each year. And so this is doing that official role. Our charter says the city manager is both the administrative head of city government and all city business and responsible to prepare and administer the annual city budget. But we're still required to follow state law. So this is doing that step to appoint anybody you want to be budget officer. I tried to get Sandy to do it last meeting, but she, just kidding. But so yes, this is doing the formal process of appointing me as budget officer going into the budget session.
Counselors, any question? And if we don't have any questions, I'll entertain a motion. Pass this resolution.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution 25-R-14, appointing budget officer for the city of Gold Hill.
I'll second that.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a motion and I have a second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Beachide,
Yes.
Counselor Berggren,
Yes.
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Frazier,
Yes.
Counselor Stancliff,
Yes.
motion carries.
Outstanding. Okay. Council considerations, section E, resolution 25-R-15. Approve Four-Way Foundation grant application. You want to explain that?
Last year, council, we applied for a grant and received that grant from the Four-Way Foundation, which is exciting. We have new doors because of it. And we're waiting for the final signage to be applied, and then that project will be wrapped up and reported on. But we are entering a new grant season for the Four-Way Foundation. The maximum of the grants is $10,000. Right now, one of the things that I'm trying very hard to do is get our irrigation in the sports park fixed. So the timers work appropriately, so we can actually be watering into the spring and through the summer, to reduce our fire risk, to have a beautiful park that we can recreate in, to be safe for the dogs in the dog park, versus all that kind of stuff. Also, the city has been granted a new water diversion from the river. Ideally, we will be pulling irrigation from the river to the sprinklers so that we don't have chemicals going back into the river. So this is the project that I'm trying to see if we can fund with this grant. So we're waiting for the final bids. We've had a company that has agreed to partner with us to try to get it done. Going to try to see what we can do for which portions, partnering with Fred doing part of it and then, but we're going to try to get as much as we can done and so that our sports park, I will tell you that outside of this, we got a bid from this individual to get sprinklers into City Park by the library. So we're moving ahead of that. So that is going to have sprinklers on timers. But the job at the sports park is bigger. And so we're asking for grant funding to help us cover that cost. And so the Four Way Foundation requires approval of our board to apply for a grant. And so if the council does not object, that's what I will be applying for. And going from there. Now, I did put it generically in case it all comes in under that it would cover City Park as well. I just put timers in city parks instead of naming the specific park. So try to cover as much as we can.
Okay, counselors. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to pass resolution 25-R-15, approval for Four Way Foundation grant application.
I'll
Make a
make,
motion to resolution number 25R 15. Resolution authority of the city manager to apply for a capital grant from the Four-Way Station.
I second that.
Any questions? I have a motion and I have a second. Roll call.
Counselor Beachhead,
Yes.
Counselor Berggren,
yes,
Counselor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Frazier,
Yes.
Counselor Stancliff.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations. Section F, council initiated code amendments. And we have a lot of sections here. We have 1, 2, and 3. Single family dwelling standards, temporarily mobile food vendors, and setback exception standardizations. Lily, can you explain that?
I can.
there it is.
I'm going to start out of
Go.
order though, and,
Oh, good.
do the temporary mobile vendor. We just updated this earlier in the year. And part of it came out of conversations with Can Do. So currently we require anybody that operates a food vendor to also have a business license, a vendor license. That vendor license is $25. It is good for 3 months. That's the same cost as getting an annual business license, except it's good for 3 months. That's $25. If you got it for the full year, it'd be $100. Per quarter, it's $25. So they're paying the same amount as if somebody had a year-long one or the one, our current code has a 3-month one. But it also, this code that got put through this year, as we're going through it, requires them to go through a planning process and then a zoning clearance based on the cost. And I don't think that's what we intended when we were passing this. The idea was to make sure to delineate between those vendors that are going to the same spot, kind of establishing a spot versus the temporary ones. And in order to change this code, council has to initiate it. So I am looking that we can go back and clear up that it doesn't have to do a true planning review to do a temporary mobile location. And so I'm going to keep it as that and not get into all the details because we'll go back and look at the code. We'll bring it to the planning commission, bring it back to you guys. But in order to review the code, we have to start from scratch with the council initiating that. So I am looking for a motion that the council will initiate a code amendments for the temporary mobile food vendors. And if you would like, I can explain all three at once unless you want to do them one at a time, Mr. Mayor.
Can we vote on them all at once?
I actually believe you could if we went there.
Okay, why don't we just go ahead and,
All right, so I'll describe them all. I don't have all of them up here for you. There is, in December, I ran into Dick Converse. He's a longtime planner from Southern Oregon. He covered Gold Hill for a long time. Went on to Rogue Valley Council of Governments and I said, you know, our code is really outdated. It needs updated. Would you ever have interest in updating code and helping us? And he said, yes. And then the next process was, how do we pay for it? Well, turns out RVCOG recently got a grant and I met with Mr. Converse. RV Cog had been trying to get them. And I said, hey, they're trying to get you to come in and mentor their younger planners that they have hired there. And they said they asked you, but you weren't interested. He goes, no, I'm totally interested. So I connected them. They hired him and now he's assisting us. And these are some of the areas that kind of came up. And one of them that I've come across, our code requires a lot of things for if you put a development in, if you put a subdivision, if you put this in. But after that development's in, if a single home goes in, they're excluded from that stuff and it doesn't make sense. We went through the whole process of requiring erosion control and sediment requirements and driveways and all this other kind of stuff. But then there's a line in some of it that says, but a single family dwelling is excluded from these standards. I don't think it should be. I think a single home should apply to the same standards as everybody around them. And so I am asking that we initiate a code amendment for that, so we can remove the language that says single family dwellings excluded from the requirements of their neighbors. Essentially, so that is that one. And then we have, it's not required to do this third one through you guys, but I want to do it just in case. Mr. Converse believes that it's a Scrivener error. We have a section that says there's conflicting language and, everywhere you see the setback, it gives a maximum of 3 feet. For some reason, ours in one portion says a third, it says 3 feet in one portion and then a third of the lot in another. It would never be that. And he thinks it's a Scrivener error that can just be fixed, but I wanted to make sure it was covered and I brought it up to you guys. So it's just making sure that the setback exceptions standard is standardized. And so that wherever it's listed, it actually has the same language so that it's standardized. So those are those 3 areas.
I gotta ask a question. So, real quick, sorry, Lauren. Since we're talking about changing code on the single family dwellings and stuff, since I am in that process of stuff happening.
This is not unique to you. You don't have to exclude
I don't
yourself.
have to- Okay, that, just want to make sure.
Yep.
Before-
So you're not in a classification that you would have to declare a conflict. It's not unique to your property. It wouldn't impact your property per se, and you haven't actually put in a permit request with us.
Okay.
But,
That's after.
and I would say that the motions, you can take them one-on-one. You can do individual motions or you can do, and the language that I was looking for is just what I listed there. The single family dwelling standards, the temporary mobile food vendors, setback exception standardization.
Thank you. Just want to clarify.
So one motion, if worded right, would be that council or the code amendments are as follows. What's the wording? How's that going to be done? Are they going to be done
So
individually?
the recommendation would be the same. So
Okay.
motion to initiate code amendments for
Okay.
single family dwelling standards, temporary mobile food vendors, and setback exception standardization. And if somebody wanted, they could say so moved.
So moved.
Oh, do it.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
I believe I heard Counselor Martin make that motion.
Well,
No, I did it. Oh.
And Bergeron.
Okay, I know I caught Bergeron making a second, so I'm
So
going
I'll-
to give you the
Yeah.
motion, okay? Very good. One moment. Okay, here we go. Counselor Beachide,
Yes.
Counselor Bergeron,
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Frazier,
Yes.
Counselor Stancliff,
Yes.
motion carries.
That was painstaking. So be it. What was that word?
So moved.
So.
Oh, so moved. Sorry. So, yeah, so you can read it out and they're like, that's my motion. So moved.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. That's good. All right. Item
Don't make
7.
me do that, everyone, I gotta get creative.
Some of, we're done.
Any seconds?
I mean,
All right. Item 7, reports from councils. I haven't been to a so ready
Planning
meeting.
commission tomorrow, so.
I just want to clarify something. Through a conversation, I want to make sure that it's just open in public record. Lily, if I asked you for financial records, you would provide those for me, would you not?
To the best of my ability, yes.
Thank you.
I will clarify that, our financial software has been a mess, and that's not a secret. We've talked about it almost monthly. And, we have submitted, the financial documents to the auditor, so we're kind of waiting for them to see the next step so we can get the audits done and get that scheduled. We've had a financial consultant helping us for several months now because the auditors recommended it to help us get that done. And even today, I'll give you an example of something that is going to impact those numbers, and we'll have to see. She's currently out until after the 24th. So when she gets back, payroll was done in the Vision software system. And all of the payroll in 2022 and through when we switched to the third party in early 2023, they had invoices in there for the payroll taxes and the PERS and the insurance were all sitting there, and it looked like they never issued the checks to pay them. And that's accurate. They hadn't paid them. And instead of clearing it up in the Vision software to make sure it was done right, because it was all documented there, they in turn got a third party to run all of the 2022 year payroll through February of 2023, and then they paid the taxes that way. It left all of that stuff in the software. So today we addressed it because I know the 2022 and 23, because I can show in the third party that it was paid. We then adjusted it in the system to put it back so it's not showing it's been paid twice. I don't know what that's going to do to the report she turned into the auditors 2 weeks ago, because we thought everything was accounted for there. So the other thing is we were shown a new place where there's outstanding things that are there, where they created an invoice in the system and they didn't write the check for it, or they didn't follow up. And they had interesting way of documenting, and this goes back into 2022. So what it means is that with how they were doing things, I can run a report, but I can't tell you how accurate it is. And so what I did last time was tell you where the bank was. Where's our bank status, and the goal is right now we're halfway through the chart of accounts where what was also going on is every little thing that came in got its own new little code instead of going to where it's kind of already in the system and budgeted. And so we're cutting out a lot of that excess down to stuff, and we're going to match that in the budget that's coming up. And ideally is in this new budget year, the council will get access that can also run reports directly. But I will run you any report you ask for. But what I can tell you is I don't know that it's accurate yet, because we're still trying to work out all those things that from the past years hadn't been done. And yeah, so that's a little bigger than the answer you asked, but
And I knew those things. I just wanted to have that clarified. Thank you.
Item 8. City manager report.
well, I'm excited. I don't know if you guys saw, but the Gold Hill 130 years banner got up on City Hall today. Right before council, though, we were informed that the sign that Can Do put up at the entrance to town by the bridge was stolen, was taken down. That's egregious. It's like, who does that and why? I don't get it. And so if anybody knows, keep an eye out. And let's get that sign back. I mean, that's people raising money and a nonprofit paying for something in our community.
Mhm.
But I did add it to our website. So for the next bit, we're gonna have the red banner up there that we're celebrating 130th year. The proclamation is there for the public to see. So if you click on it, you'll see the signed version with the seal and everything. So, I think it's a big deal to celebrate our 130th year. So wanted to point that out. We, we have been transitioning. We have transitioned back to in-house on payroll. We are testing an online portal right now that, electronic timesheets with our office staff. And once we get the bugs worked out and see a couple payrolls of how that works, we'll get all the employees on that, clocking in, clocking out on the portal. And, so looking forward to that because part of that is in the time clock portal, they can enter their time. I can upload that into the payroll thing and it'll pay payroll off of that after the time's been improved. And when we deposit that and write the checks, it automatically goes into finance. So we're doing the final steps I submitted stuff to Vision today, so they'll create the reports for us. They don't do a lot of Oregon cities. They've had a couple. So Oregon has specific things we have to report both to Oregon Department of Revenue and then the IRS is a separate one. So we're getting the steps to be able to report those electronically, to pay those electronically versus having physical checks. So the piece that happened back in 2022 where they're supposed to pay the IRS, we're gonna make sure that's done. So anyhow, we're getting that still transitioned. And had a big meeting today with Vision to get them all the forms from the state so that it's an easy report that we can upload and get it done. It's just steps, but things that got overlooked in the past. So, in the last couple, I don't know when it started, but since last summer, Fire District 3 put together a crew, kind of like a fuels reduction team. And they've been going to different communities and trying to help build defensible space around homes. And they're coming to Gold Hill next. And so they're looking to be working and we'll be able to pay them with the Oregon State Fire Marshal Community Wildfire Risk Reduction Grant that we got in 2023-24. So that first grant is going to be paying for some work done. And we have at my request, Fred has mapped some areas that were responsible for some city stuff that impacts the homes around them. So we're going to be submitting that for us, but they're also going to be going to individual homes in the community and seeing how they can assess. So our community should be aware that Fire District 3 is going to be reaching out. We're going to ask that those the notifications go in Spanish and English so that we're reaching out and any other help needs to be done, but hoping to help reduce fuels. It's important that everybody knows right now, if you got a letter from the state about the wildfire map risks, that those appeals have to be in by March 7th. I've been told the 7th. If it's the 10th, I don't want to get it in by the 7th. If it's due by the 10th, get it in early. But there's a level of if they just went by the wildland urban interface, the WUI, everybody's high risk in Oregon. If they went by specific criteria in the whole thing, a lot less people are high risk and it focuses on specific areas. Nonetheless, enough people have filed appeals. The governor asked to pause that they're sending them to the administrative review. I know the legislature is trying to deal with it, but the best thing anybody can do is submit your appeal to have your property redone. When I was a legislator and we went through this a couple of years ago and the bill was initially passed and they came out with the first version. At first they were saying they would repeal the map, but then they chose not to. But it was never supposed to have the implications. It was supposed to be a map designating areas for the city or for the state of Oregon to focus resources. So based on the map, they were going to say, okay, we're going to send resources there. But what they originally said is they want people to do the home hardening, the defensible space, putting the building materials around the vehicle, around the home and keeping shrubbery away from 100 feet of your home and, you know, the roofing material and the vents in place and all the materials that build your house that keeps the fire risk down. And then they said, but that won't reduce your risk. And so there's a question of where's the incentive to do this if it doesn't actually help you reduce your risk? And they said, well, maybe we'll require insurance companies to give you a benefit. Well, the opposite is happening, where people are getting canceled left and right. So this is a hot topic. It's not really anything for we as a city to do. But what I put it out there on Facebook a couple days ago when I saw the governor's letter, just so that people can see. But the governor's letter, I think, is where I saw the March 7th. There was something related to that. But nonetheless, for folks to get in their appeals, and then we as a city are also part of Fire District 3 is going to be applying for another grant, but it's a federal grant, so we'll see what happens with that, fuels reduction. I was recently asked in a Parks Committee if we were impacted by any of the federal grant stuff, and I realized that I answered it with where we were, as our only federal grant we had was the EQUAG grant to replace the turbines and the pumps at the intake. But when that went to bid this last year, it came in over what the grant amount was. And then with the RVSS annexation, when we deeded the plant to RVSS for the sewer plant, USDA came back and said, you're defaulted on your loan because you no longer own the building that you have a loan on. And we've been working for almost a year on getting that loan transferred to RVSS because that's what the signed annexation agreement said would happen. USDA still has not approved that process. We're still jumping through those hoops. But that, when they put the loan in default, they froze all our federal grants. We had one. So in the Parks Committee the other day, somebody asked me, are we impacted by the federal grants? I'm like, yeah, we have our one that's frozen because of the other circumstance. It's not being affected by any presidential executive order. So I wanted to clarify, we're not impacted by that at all right now. I don't know what the impact of future grants will be, but we didn't have any that are impacted by that. We are moving forward with our state grants that even have some pass-through federal funding. They said we're still moving forward, so nothing else has been impacted. I will be out of the office for the next couple weeks for a couple reasons. I got the scholarship to go to the Oregon Government Finance Officers Association conference. So come back and from that conference, and we're going to start delving into the budget. But before that, I'm taking some personal time. So I'm designating Mallory as my interim, filling in my place. And she will have my work phone. I will be taking my laptop with me so that I have access and I am available to them. But anyhow, you should know that
We might not have a city manager.
you do. You have an interim called Mallory. You do also have my personal cell phone number. So
I do.
all right. So that is the gist of my report at this time.
Well, thank you. Item 9, good of the order. Anybody have anything?
I do.
Malia?
We're going along here with 5 city councilors. We still have an open council seat. Are we doing anything about recruiting for that, or should we, or how long can we go on with 5?
The charter says to fill as soon as possible. So, I mean, it's been posted on our website. I even created a new job opening to kind of put that out there in notifications. And so it's there. I should have reported that we also had 2 budget committee members not want to continue. We have gotten an application of a new budget committee member, but there's another opening, and I've yet to hear back from one of the members if they want to continue. I sent out an email to all of the budget committee members asking if they wanted to continue on budget committee, and I have not heard back from one of them, and so still waiting. But there's openings on 2 of the parks committees. There's 2 planning commission openings. There's a city council, so there's a lot of openings, and really it comes down to as the city, I put it out there, but it's not for me to recruit. necessarily, unless you have a different suggestion on how we do that,
I
but.
wasn't suggesting.
I think the
But
council
just-
members individually, you can recruit, you can, citizens can recommend somebody.
But there's
We
no,
can't voluntold somebody to do it, though. We have to let them volunteer themselves and fill out the application.
but we could go on with 5 indefinitely.
We have a quorum. We have enough.
Yes.
Matter of fact, our charter now addresses what do we do all the way down to one member. And so, I mean, we are able to function as a government. We're not without the ability to function. So I would say that when we get a complete application and that will bring it to the council for the council to decide. But in the meantime, that's where we're at.
Thank you. Yeah, we have to make chairs smaller.
Yeah,
We gotta go. We're gonna.
the mayor and I have a plan for the dais. So unless I try to take the arms off, if the arms came off the chairs, then they would fit at the dais. But the dais has also got some, it's also broken. And so,
My ends fall off.
yeah,
We gotta extend this at least 18.
we're gonna work on it. The mayor promised,
Did you
no,
come in and-
that he would help create a new dais and that he forced me to help him. So that'll be more weekends working on cabinets, apparently.
Mhm. Where were we? Go to the order. Anything else?
I'm gonna just give a caution to council. We did have public comment earlier based on a property that is on sale for in the city right now. It's a topic that was an executive session topic. I would just ask that you not talk about it when there could be a quorum. You be careful about what you discuss individually.
Anything else? Councilors?
One last thing. I just want to thank Lily for all the work that she's doing on getting our finances going.
Yes.
I know that's been a really hot topic for me. Ever since I got on the council and going through, I just want to make sure that it's recognized on record that we really do appreciate it. So,
That's been a hot topic for 8.
yeah, I know, so.
And Lily is very much appreciated.
Well, I have help. So
Okay.
I couldn't do it without a staff that is being really diligent right now to get that done.